concept of death is odd when you're a kid. I don't think that there is a standard age across the board when kids realize that somebody is dead. Like, at what age can a child differentiate between an open casket funeral and then somebody sleeping in a box in front of people? 9-year-old Mary, she knew right away. Her older sister Ruth died of brain cancer, and Mary is brought with her parents to see Ruth's body in the casket. That's when it starts happening. She's watching as her parents take Ruth's body out of the casket, place her on the floor outside, and they start cutting.
My parents got me up really early. Ruth's body was brought there, laid on the ground in the treat area by our childhood church.
Mary's dad is cutting into Ruth's body with a knife just again and again. And then he tells Mary to hold it. So now she's holding this knife, and they make 9-year-old Mary cut into her older sister's beloved body, and they slash her up everywhere.
I just remember having a knife in my hand and stabbing my sister's body. And I'm like, how did they get me to do that? Later, I remembered that they made me change into her panties. I mean, they did that to make Chopper happy, obviously.
Until they finally place Ruth back into the casket along with Mary.
And they put me in the coffin with her. My visceral response of being put in the coffin with her was, I get to be close to my sister. I get to touch her hair.
Mary Knight is tortured through her entire childhood by her aerospace engineer father, who worked at Boeing, who is also a church leader. They were millionaires, but Mary remembers being deprived of food, being passed around by her dad's friends. Mary remembers that her dad would creepily tell her that he was attracted to her. This is back when she's a child. And it seemed like her mom starts getting jealous because she starts saying things like, my legs look better than your legs. Mary is sex trafficked and abused in hotels, in a Sunday school classroom in a church building, at her childhood home, her grandparents' home, on a swing set, in a studio of a professional photographer after regular hours, at a doctor's office by a doctor who ran the practice, who is also very close friends with Mary's parents. Mary says that her dad was a prolific CSAM creator, producing videos with his own daughter Mary and victimizing other children. And this is all during Mary's childhood. But she doesn't remember any of it until she turns 37 years old. This is the story of Mary Knight, who says she was trafficked by her parents, who were allegedly prolific child abusers. But there are people who don't believe Mary. There is an entire organization called the False Memory Syndrome Foundation that don't believe Mary, along with Mary's own parents. They don't believe Mary. A high-profile doctor believes Mary is lying.
How old were you, roughly then?
About 37. Yeah.
And how do you know it really happened?
They don't think any of this is real. They don't think any of this is true. They think that she is flat out lying. They say she doesn't have proof. They say she doesn't have anyone to corroborate her claims. They say she was probably brainwashed during her hypnosis sessions to believe that she was abused.
Basically, I have 5 minutes of your story. I hope this won't be offensive, but your claims about what other people said, but I haven't heard those claims from them. And
they say that she's doing this because she craves attention, that she must be mistaken. But what motive would Mary have to lie about any of this? And what motive do these doctors have to disprove Mary? Could it be that they don't want victims to be believed? But why would they want that? Is it because some of these people who are against Mary and want the world to think that Mary is lying, they also have been accused by their own children of abuse? This is the story of Mary Knight and why some people think that she's lying. And that's why we went to go see Mary to see if she is.
After a flurry of news about recovered memories of childhood abuse, we started seeing a backlash against so-called false memories.
She recalled repressed memories of sexual abuse by her father. At least, she said so.
But we can't admit to something that didn't happen, because that's not going to be good for you.
I'm accused of something that's absolutely not true.
I think she's just been completely brainwashed.
This recollection came to her in a flash when she was hypnotized by a therapist.
At which point it's hard to tell who's hypnotizing who at this point. Now we watch the allegations week by week.
How are you? Nice to meet you.
I love your
Jerry. Good to see you.
It over my face. She pinched my nose. She did that 7 times.
Take it to when you were 37 and when everything's starting to come back.
My aunt had told me that she told me I had witnessed child abuse. I was journaling sitting on my couch, and all of a sudden I just see this image. They say I'm crazy, and it didn't happen because.
Do you think that there can ever be a chance, a world in which something happens to you, you are conscious, you are not under the influence of any substance, you are wide awake, and then something happens, either right in front of your face, or something happens to you, and you do not remember it? Is that possible? And then one day, 20 years later, you suddenly remember this moment that you had. Are repressed memories real? It depends on who you ask. Pick a side and welcome to the memory wars. This was a huge thing back in the 90s, the memory wars was. There is one side of people who believe that your mind is so powerful that you can repress these traumatic memories deep into the back of your brain, and then they can come back to you when your brain decides that you are safe enough to start working through this trauma. Then you have the other side of people who believe that this is not a real thing, that you cannot just forget a memory and then suddenly remember a memory. And the stakes for the memory wars are very high. You're talking about criminal convictions, multi-million-dollar lawsuits, families being ripped apart. If all you have is a memory from 20 years ago, how do you know who is telling the truth? It could be likely that if you ask someone from the False Memory Syndrome Foundation, they would tell you that they're all lying. This isn't real. You cannot have repressed memories. The people who say they do, they're lying, and the memories are false. They're untrue. That's why we call it false memory syndrome. Now, I will note, this is not like a real syndrome that's recognized by the DSM-5 or anything, but I guess you could throw syndrome behind anything. They say this is real. False Memory Syndrome Foundation. This is a non-profit organization that believes that people are following the trend of recovering repressed memories for all sorts of reasons. Attention, to feel special, to feel traumatized, to feel victimized. They're accusing their incredible parents who have raised them of being abusers. Church leaders are losing their positions in their community because someone recovered a memory 20 years later of abuse. And if it's not stopped, the False Memory Syndrome Foundation says the world is going to be ripped at the seams because this is pretty much, an epidemic.
She recalled repressed memories of sexual abuse by her father. At least, she said so.
And I've been accused of something that's absolutely not true.
I think she's just been completely brainwashed.
This debate on whether or not repressed memories are real was so big that it was dubbed the Memory Wars. Doctors from both sides wrote paper after paper to disprove the other party, and in the end, nobody comes to a freaking agreement. But regardless of what the doctors are arguing, and a lot of people have experiences, like firsthand accounts of recovering repressed memories, one netizen writes, "For me, it always starts with a feeling. It feels like something is trying to get my attention, but I don't know what. I just know that I'm forgetting something important. That could last for weeks. And then I'll get an image. Usually it's a blip of something. And it lingers very unsettling for a few days, a few weeks, whatever. And then something happens and then I suddenly will remember. And with that memory, it's not even just the memory I remember. The appropriate feelings that were repressed just hit you like a brick at once. It probably varies from person to person, but that has been my experience. One clinician states, it's not what you really think it is. People try to make repressed memories seem like something, but honestly, she says, I've never seen a patient recover repressed memories. I'm not sure they're considered real. The clinician writes, what is real though, is memory disturbance during trauma. So she's just saying there's so much connotation with repressed memories. We just call it like memory disturbance. Memories may be missing. They may be incomplete. They may be warped. And it's not that these memories are corrected in any way for you to remember, but the memories you do have will be associated with other memories and sensations and experiences that you already have on file in your brain. Some of these memories can be surprising because you may not have thought about them in a really long time, and the emotions attached can be surprisingly intense. So think of your memory like a computer. It's not designed to pull things out of the recycling bin, but it does take all the junk that's sitting on your desktop and tags it with things, sensations, emotions, images that are related, and then they file them away properly. The way that they're explaining it is like, sometimes you will have this very specific experience trigger that file to be automatically opened, like a file that you didn't even remember you had. And that is precisely what happens to Mary, repressed memories.
Mary says in her book, My Life Now, Essays by a Child Sex Trafficking Survivor, I am sure that my life is better because my mind allowed me to place memories of abuse into a compartment that I couldn't open until age 37, when I finally felt safe to do so. So what exactly does Mary remember?
I was 5 or 6 years old. We were at the first house I lived in out in the country, and I remember men coming in multiple cars, and I remember seeing my mom on the front porch, and she took money from the men. And then I was one of the trees that it was close to where my swing set was. They tied a rope to the tree, and they tied the rope around my neck. So then I was sexually abused. I was by one man, and then he would hand me to the next man, and there were 5 or 6 men. And then the rope was cut, and I was on the ground, and they used the bathroom on me, the men did. And one of the men got mad at my dad and said, "You went too far. She's going to die." And my dad said, "She's mine. I can do what I want." I remember searching for my mother's eyes because I thought maybe my mother would have compassion for me, but she didn't. When she did look at me, it was like she was looking at an insect. Like I was not even as valuable as an animal. After that, my mother brought me into the house and bathed me, and it seemed like she was being kind to me. And then she put me on a bed that had brand new sheets on it that smelled good. And then she came in and she fondled me.
FMSF and skeptics of recovered repressed memories, they say it was like a trend in the 90s. A lot of people were recovering repressed memories. A lot of high-profile books came out at the time, is what they argue. You could just pick it up at the bookstore, and they'll say, "Are you a survivor of incest? Here's a checklist." And they would include things like anxiety, depression, eating disorders. And then that would make you feel like maybe I was. They state that these books are the reason that people start believing that they were abused as a kid. Skeptics say that a lot of cases, false memory implantation happens by way of, quote, suggesting things to people, guided imagination, taking them through imagination exercises when they can't remember something, sexualized dream interpretation. Oh, you have a dream of this, maybe it goes back to your childhood. Hypnosis, giving people books to read that advance the theory of repression, putting them in group therapy when they don't have any memories and they listen to a lot of other people talk about childhood abuse, exposing them to other forms of suggestive psychotherapy. Those are why people have these repressed memories. And they say, boom,
That's all it takes for this new memory to form for you to believe that you were abused as a child. I will say the False Memory Syndrome Foundation aren't particularly the most convincing people out there. However, one thing that has stuck with a lot of people, and I'm just saying netizens out there, on the debate of whether or not repressed memories are real, is that a lot of research so far has shown that emotional and traumatic events are typically remembered better and not worse than mundane experiences. So studies on trauma survivors consistently show that traumatic memories, they tend to be very intrusive, persistent. They're difficult to forget rather than inaccessible. So they state that in neuroscience, when your body has a spike in adrenaline and norepinephrine, it actually strengthens memory consolidation through the amygdala, which makes emotional memories more durable over time. This is human adaptation because remembering threats helps us avoid them, but that's just what research shows. That doesn't mean that's the only way that our brains work. In fact, trauma makes brains work in very strange and unreasonable ways. Other scholars argue differently, such as Jennifer. She's a doctor, and we'll get into Jennifer in a second. She states that children who are abused by their caregivers are in an impossible situation. So a lot of people who have repressed memories, it's from their childhood. And she states a lot of it is because when you are being abused by your caregiver as a child, there's no reason for your brain to keep it in your mind as a threat, because there's nothing you can do about it. It's not like you can avoid the threat any longer. This is your caregiver that's abusing you. You don't have a choice. Not that anyone who is abused has a choice, but like it's harder to do threat assessments as a child versus an adult.
Okay, what does that mean then?
If I go to the grocery store and I get whacked, and this is like obviously a much simplistic analogy that has no, I don't want anyone to think that I'm comparing the severity of SA or anything like that. But if I go to the grocery store and I get hit with a cart, I'm going to remember that as an adult because I don't want to get hit with a cart again. But as a child, I mean, that's why children are so reckless with their bodies sometimes, because there's less of a threat assessment that can be done when you're that young. And so she's saying, if you were abused as a child, your brain might not remember it and keep it at the forefront of your memory because there's no way for you to avoid that threat next time. Whereas an adult, you may feel like you could try to avoid it. Again, not saying that SA is avoidable by any means.
That's
but
interesting. Okay.
Your brain might try to think that it is. These kids are dependent on the ones that are harming them, which means they may adapt. This allows the child to fake security in their parental relationships, maintain that relationship that is necessary for survival. It's almost betrayal blindness. That's what she calls it. Also, it can be argued by those with repressed memories that, yes, the memory formation is there. I mean, clearly the memory is there. It's not like it disappeared. It's not like you didn't form the memory. It's not like you threw it away. It's just stored in a way that's difficult for you to recall. Basically, dissociative amnesia. And this is highly studied and highly recognized.
Is this the same thing as the repressed memory or different?
There's differences between the two, but a lot of people actually think when you really hone in on repressed memories, they think it's like a variation of dissociative amnesia, which there's not a lot of debate on whether or not dissociative amnesia exists or not.
Okay.
So people are just saying this seems like a different, almost like a fragment of that. Eleanor Goldstein is a big member of the False Memory Syndrome Foundation, and she has her own book out, which is not the best read. I will tell you that. I read the book, but she writes about how, quote, false memories like Mary's are tearing families apart.
The book is all about what? False memory?
Yeah, so
is a lie?
One of the books that she wrote, and yeah, I don't know why they write so many books. I'm talking about the False Memory Syndrome Foundation. But one of the books that she wrote is a collection of stories of parents who are accused by their adult children of abuse. They don't talk to any of the victims. She doesn't talk to any of the survivors. She doesn't talk to any of the adults that were kids that are accusing their parents now. She just talks to the parents, and they all have their own little chapter in the book. And they write about how these quote unquote false memories, like Mary's, are tearing families apart. Yes, Eleanor Goldstein knows Mary, and Eleanor Goldstein believes that Mary is lying. What proof does Eleanor Goldstein have? Not really any. But she writes in her book, imagine what it's like to have the person you have loved, nurtured, idolized, your child, suddenly turn against you and accuse you of the most horrendous crimes imaginable. That is what is happening in the US today. And Mary decides, after she uncovers her repressed memories, Mary is going to meet with Eleanor Goldstein, a prominent member of False Memory Syndrome Foundation. She's also going to meet with the founder, Pamela Fried. the founder of False Memory Syndrome Foundation. People who have spent their life saying that people like Mary are lying. Mary wants to go and talk to them.
Confabulation is a mixture of fact and fantasy to create a new memory. Mm-hmm. We do that every day. We mix our memories up with other people's memories. Mm-hmm. So we've learned that memory is very, very pliable. And you can get people to believe anything that you want them to believe if you use the right techniques. Bullshit memories that come back like that out of the blue. How do you know for sure that these memories are true? I spoke in Canada at Simon Fraser University, dentist. And all of a sudden, 20 years later, some patient comes and says, I remember 20 years ago you abused me when I was in the dental chair, but I forgot about it until I went to therapy. Now I remember.
I remember my dad saying that he was sexually attracted to me. I think that's...
How old were you when he said that?
You know, I don't think it matters how old someone is. It's just wrong.
I mean, you know, some things you just take as a joke. People say stupid things.
That's not something I think a father would usually joke about, that he's sexually attracted to his daughter.
What did you say? How old were you? You don't remember?
Yeah, I do. I remember I was about 13.
In a book written by Eleanor Goldstein, she writes about what happens to trigger repressed memories. And she puts repressed memories in quotes. She says, typically, a successful, intelligent woman goes to a therapist with a problem, perhaps about her marriage, her children, an inexplicable illness like an eating disorder. She emerges from therapy with the belief that all of her problems are related to childhood sexual abuse. And after perhaps first accusing a babysitter, a cousin, a family friend, or a teacher, the parent is accused, not allowed to present a defense and abandoned, perhaps even sued. There is a growing belief that sexual abuse of all sorts engulfs our nation. Celebrities have told their stories of incest and rape, and dozens of books have been written. Talk shows, newspaper, and magazine articles tell the details which horrify us all. We appear to be a nation of depraved sex maniacs. Mass hysteria is being created by the media, which leads us to believe that a large portion of adults in our society are perpetrators of heinous crimes, and our children are in constant danger from almost everyone they may come in contact with, especially family members. The consequences of this mass hysteria are devastating. Since it is believed that sex abuse is common, therapists, teachers, doctors are all looking for it everywhere, and many are finding it even when it doesn't exist. Mary says around that time, her mother had passed away, but with, now filming a documentary, Mary has a documentary, which, like I said, I'm going to link all below, but she said talking to these people, I'm sure it's bringing up a lot of these unresolved feelings about her mother being deceased. And there's a lot of mixed feelings with the feeling of familial connection to her mom, which wasn't there with her dad. But regardless, she's feeling that, and she's feeling angry, she's feeling betrayed, she's feeling hurt, and she says, as I prepared for the interview with Eleanor Goldstein and Pamela Fried, it was obvious to me that I had not gotten over the loss of my mother. So I decided to bake cookies for Pamela with my mother's recipe.
And, I told you I made cookies for you with my mom's recipe, but she sexually abused me. Oh, it was for one of the people I interviewed who thinks my memories are false. And yeah, she did like the cookie, and it was just this kind of, she reminded me of my mother, and I think I reminded her of her daughter who was abused by her husband. And she doesn't have contact with her daughter now. And I think we both kind of thought we could talk the other one into believing different. I think she thought that she could talk me into believing my memories weren't true, and then that would be really good for her organization. But that didn't happen. Well, my mom was always jealous of me. Plus, she was very verbose. She would say a lot. I thought she'd be protective of my dad. And I thought if I had a chance to talk directly to my dad might go to counseling with me. But if I talked to my mom first, she wouldn't want that to happen. And I really thought of myself at that time as probably closer to my dad. But then when I broke contact with my parents, it was my mother I missed the most. It just was horrible for me to think about saying goodbye permanently to my mother. And that really surprised me, that just is your core. Your mother is your core.
Can you tell us what you're making today?
So these are This is homemade roll dough from my mother's recipe. And this is the recipe my mom taught me when I was little. When I started baking when I was pretty young. My mother was a very good cook. Let's see, after my mother, 7 years after she died, I started feeling her presence when I'm in the kitchen. As far as like she's an angel. This was her cookie sheet. And actually I'll put the dinner rolls in it. Yeah, that's something I asked for. I was disinherited, but I asked for the cookie sheet and I got it.
Did you ask for anything else?
Well, yeah, I asked for like 2 place settings of china, and my mother had real silver. I didn't get any of that. But I got the things that were not valuable that I wanted. The dolls up there. And I bake so much that I think really this may be my most sentimental possession, even though it's not of value. And she would talk to me about things like she was jealous of me. She said she had better legs than I do. I remember one time I was in the backseat of the car, we were going to church, and my dad looked back and said, "Oh, you look pretty, Mary." And my mom said, "Who looks prettier, her or me?" That's a weird thing to say, you know?
False Memory Syndrome Foundation believes that therapy is the triggering problem. When a person meets a therapist who has a steadfast belief that there is a strong link between past SA and current individual pathology, they might persuade the patient to remember past abuse that the foundation believes did not happen. One very high-profile psychologist who has inserted herself into studying so-called false memory syndrome, she states, to understand who we are and why we are the way we are, many therapists encourage us to go back to our childhood and find out what happened to us there. If we are in pain, we are told there must be a cause. If we cannot locate the cause, we might not have looked deep enough. If we have looked deep enough and we have found something but we don't believe it, we might be in denial. And on goes the search to find the truth of our lives and the memories we have and the memories we have lost. Some people have stated that they believe repressed memories being uncovered in therapy is, quote, that's how you turn a $2,000 eating disorder patient into a $200,000 eating disorder patient. So a lot of the doctors who don't believe in the repressed memories being true, they think it's a way for therapists and clinicians to get more money out of patients. Because, oh, you're just depressed and anxious? Well, maybe I could solve it in 3 sessions, but now if I tell you that your entire life is a lie, then you might need a few years. Which is a very dangerous stigma to place on therapists who already have such a strong stigma that they're working against. But these doctors believe that many psychologists are trying to make more money by convincing their patients that they are deeply, deeply traumatized and they need to uncover, unpack, and process all of that trauma. But of course, regardless of what someone believes, there are a few strange things, such as the False Memory Syndrome Foundation is a nonprofit, more or less raising awareness and, I want to say, lobbying or rallying against, quote, false memory syndrome, which again is not a recognized syndrome, but they will sometimes pay psychiatrists $110,000 to write a paper to debunk repressed memories. And you're telling me there's no bias there? Yeah.
How do we know that they paid?
Because it's a nonprofit, so a lot of their stuff is public information. They will pay like a Harvard psychiatrist who has a very strong name in the field. And then when you read paper done by Harvard psychiatrist, you're thinking, okay, maybe this is legitimate. Turns out it's funded by the False Memory Syndrome Foundation.
It even shows how much they paid him?
Yeah.
Wow.
And everyone will take this paper at face value without realizing that they got paid a fat fee for it. I mean, I think there is no doubt that hypnosis can create a state of suggestibility. I don't think anyone is arguing that. I also do think that the power of suggestion, and I do think memory is a wishy-washy thing in the sense of, I think no one has an airtight memory. I think you could remember someone wearing a red shirt, but it was a blue shirt. But overall, most people and most psychiatrists agree that typically the gist of what happened, you do have a strong grasp on that, especially for traumatic events, especially for anything in particular that is of importance. I'm not doubting that the power of suggestion can be huge on humans. I tend to agree with this one netizen who sums it up very well. And they write, here's what my therapist told me about quote-unquote false memories. Memories that are completely made up and have no basis in reality, they can exist. They can. But
must be repeatedly and continuously reinforced in order to be maintained. And false memories cannot give you trauma. You would not have trauma responses without the trauma. For example, if someone tells you over and over and over again that you were in a really bad car accident, but you just don't remember it, your brain can convince you that you can remember such a thing, and you could probably even visualize it. But it wouldn't make you scared of driving. It wouldn't give you flashbacks of an accident that never happened. And once that person stops the reinforcement of that memory and false beliefs associated, it usually fades and eventually completely goes away. Also, I just don't see why someone would subject themselves to something like having these repressed memories. One netizen writes, "It feels horrible. I had signs of CSA. Like I would pee myself a lot at school growing up, but I didn't remember any of that." The netizen says, one day they urinated on themselves at work as an adult. And they just started crying in a way that was irrational. An adult who urinates on themselves at work, yes, you might start crying because it's embarrassing, but it was almost like a mental breakdown of a crying. And they state that I even hugged my boss, who happens to be a raging asshole, so I would never hug them. Like, that's how caught off guard I was. I was terrified. Every time I have one of these repressed memories, I feel like the world is spinning. I get this weird feeling. It's familiar. I mean, I guess I used to feel that after stuff would happen and my brain would block out the memories. I'm still in shock and I don't want to believe what happened. Repressed memories are weird. In fact, it's not like people don't doubt themselves. Again, the False Memory Syndrome Foundation makes it seem like you have this vague memory that comes up in a hypnosis session and then you make it your life's mission and you're like, this is my new life. This is my new whole personality. But most people who have repressed memories come back up, they spend years believing it's not true. They spend years doubting it. They spend years trying to find reasons why it's not true to confirm that this is a false memory, but it's not confirmed. Nobody wants to be traumatized. Like, nobody wants these things to have happened. And oftentimes, therapists won't even believe you.
Hi. Hi, Mary. One thing was saying, like, a young child who's under age 2 or under age 3 will never remember any abuse, and if they are abused, won't be affected by it. Is that what you think?
A child under 2 really doesn't have memories of anything that happened. Anything that isn't painful, the child, it wouldn't hurt the child. I mean, it may be morally wrong to touch a child who's under 2. It may be obnoxious. That's a terrible thing to do, and society says no. But if you think about it, it doesn't damage the child. It's wrong, but the child is not damaged by it unless it's physically hurt.
Physically injured or hurt?
Physically injured or hurt.
Well, what if
the child cries?
If the child cries, then would that affect the child later?
So far as we know, children who've been physically abused, anyway abused, they don't remember that, and it doesn't seem to have any later effect on them.
My son's wanting to find babysitters for their kids because their kids, their oldest is 2, and so even if their kids are beat up a little bit at the babysitter, it's not going to affect them, and unless there's an injury.
And moreover, we know that most abuse of children under 2, most real sexual abuse that occurs, has to do with touching, usually not penetration. It's usually not very violent. It's not violent at all. It's usually more curiosity, exploration.
You think a reason someone would fondle a 1-year-old is curiosity?
I think that's usually what people think.
So someone who would want to touch a 1-year-old's vagina, does that for curiosity?
Well, that would be one motivation.
And what would they be curious about? What would an adult be curious about a 1-year? I don't get it.
That's why it's deviant.
Yeah, but you think it wouldn't hurt them? When I was 3 and 4, I used to love my maternal grandfather. I called him Daddy Bob. He wore cowboy boots, and I would put little objects in his boots, so when he put them on, there'd be something in them. And he just thought I had a really good sense of humor. My mother and him would go into the bedroom. My dad would be at work. They would set me down at the dining table and give me chocolate chip cookie dough. And that was my distraction so that my mother and her father could have sex. I remember hearing them in there. I remember that it happened enough times that it didn't seem unusual for it to happen. And then they brought me in. My daddy Bub had said that he would never do anything that would hurt. And of course, for a young girl, it hurt. It hurt. And I remember how betrayed I felt by Daddy Bub. But the other thing I remember about it is that not only was my mother not protective, she was so jealous of me. And afterwards, she beat me. And she said, I'm his only little girl. I'm his only precious little girl. And she kept saying that to me when she beat me. And my mom was always like that with her father. I mean,
stroking the vagina of a 2-year-old child, an unrelated male stroking a child for curiosity, for any other reason.
For sexual reasons, and having an orgasm when the child's there would not affect the child.
That child wouldn't remember that. For example, if a 2-year-old child saw their parents murdered, they wouldn't remember that. That would be a terrible thing to observe for a 2-year-old child, but they wouldn't remember it, and therefore wouldn't be affected by it.
One of the kids, the first time she came in, a cute little red-headed girl, she did this. I mean, just loud as and I didn't know her history at all. But then I just say to the child, like, oh, it looks like you're hitting. And she said, yeah, she pointed out that the clown is smiling. And she hit the clown because the clown was smiling. People who abuse children are sometimes triggered by a happy child. She had experienced the murder of her little sister. So she was 3 when she started counseling with me. Biological parents put a blanket over the child's face, and they said they did it so the child wouldn't cry at night. And they said, well, we did it with our other daughter and she never died. One time when she came in, she put this plastic over, and of course I couldn't let her because that would hurt me. But and I'm like, what is she trying to do? And then she started, when she would come in, she would want me to lay down. And she'd say, lay down, and I would. And then she'd say, put your head down. So she wanted me straight down like this. And then she'd get this blanket. And it's a weighted blanket. And she would put it over my face. She would put her hand. There were times she put it over me like this. And then she got to where she'd pinch my nose, which I would need to stop her then because she's not allowed to hurt me. She did that 7 times. The law enforcement wanted to interview her because she was obviously had witnessed this crime. The only people I've ever heard her call mommy and daddy are her current foster parents, and they are going to be adopting her. So she gets to live with the people she calls mommy and daddy. Yeah.
During the interviews that Mary has with Pamela and Eleanor Goldstein, they act like Mary doesn't have any corroborating evidence, like 0, none. But Mary does. Mary's cousin actually remembered abuse 9 years before Mary did. She reached out to Mary to tell her that she had been abused as a kid by her father. Mary remembers, I had just become a mother. I brought my infant son with me. I sat with her on an old faded couch. I breastfed my son while I listened to her heartfelt recollections. And when she finished, so this is the time when Mary was working as a social worker. So she's very good at listening to people. She's also very good at identifying
gaps in stories because, you're interviewing parents to see if they're fit enough to take care of their children. And you have to be able to realize when people are lying or it doesn't make sense. And she tells her cousin, I believe you. And her cousin's face falls. Because clearly she does not want to hear that. Mary says she wanted me to say that she was wrong. I mean, no one wants to believe that their own father essayed them. There was another cousin. Mary really tried to get in contact with her, but they drifted apart. Eventually, she runs into her own cousin at, of all places, Survivors for Child Abuse Conference. Mary didn't even realize it was her cousin that she had been searching for, and that cousin thought that Mary was ignoring her on purpose in the hallways. Eventually, they exchanged emails, but Mary took down the wrong email, resulting in them losing contact for another year, until finally they met up 2 years later. Mary decides that she's just going to ask her cousin. Not really expecting any sort of answer, she asks, did my father ever essay you? The cousin tells her yes. She says, he wasn't somebody who physically touched me, but almost coaching others somehow. Taking pictures as well, encouraging others to be involved in sexual acts with me and filming them. Which is exactly what Mary, she had these memories of being filmed and that CSAM was being created. She hadn't told her cousin this. Furthermore, the church that Mary used to go to, the Church of Christ, she went back to try and figure out if any church members were known to be abusers because she had these recollections of being abused in like a Bible study room in that church. And she couldn't really investigate much because the police didn't want to help her. And it's not like she can just conduct interviews with people in hopes that they give her a confession that would lead them straight to prison. However, Jimmy Hinton, he is the minister of the Church of Christ in Pennsylvania and also a very good friend of Mary's. Jimmy's sister had a very similar experience to Mary. Jimmy became the minister after his dad had been the minister of this church for 40 years. He's adjusting, trying to be a dad, trying to be a minister. And that is when his adult sister, Alex, is like, Jimmy, I need to talk to you. And she tells him that she has these repressed memories of their father, the minister, abusing her. Alex is actually interviewed and she's asked, I understand that you felt like you had a pretty happy childhood. But in 2011, you started having flashbacks that remind you of abuse that occurred. What can you tell me about that? Alex says, I saw this picture of my dad touching me in an inappropriate way. But it was one of those things at first I tried to shrug off the image in my head, like, that didn't really happen. You know what I mean? Like, maybe it was an accident. Maybe I'm not remembering something correctly. I just kept trying to brush it off. It was just like bits and pieces. I didn't have a full memory of it, so I couldn't quite put it together. Then in 2011, I was 20 years old. My dad had asked me to help him babysit kids a couple of times. So he was still babysitting after he retired as a minister for like church kids. I took them swimming and it was just like small things that the kids would say. Of like, can we sleep over at his house today? And just like, he just gave her a weird feeling.
Wait, the kids said if they can sleep over at the dad's house?
Yeah.
Huh.
Not that relatives can't be abusers. Obviously, clearly they can. But it's like your old minister from the church. I can't imagine ever sleeping over at my minister's house unless there was like a Bible study with a lot of church leaders involved and like, or like you usually have sleepovers at the church is what I recall growing up religious. Not that I'm religious anymore, but it's just weird. And so she just has this weird feeling about the whole thing.
So you're saying these kids has done that before? Like
yes.
They've slept over. That's why then when they brought it up, she was like, that's weird. Yeah. And then it's giving her more flashbacks.
Yes. And it's like triggering these feelings in her. And that's when she says, quote, I finally put it together that yes, that did happen to me. Looking back, what kind of impact did the abuse that you suffered have on your life? I struggled with anxiety and depression ever since I could remember. I had horrible insomnia as a kid. I was afraid to go to bed or sleep in my own bed. When I was probably 13, 14 is when I had severe depression, and I just didn't know why. I would sit at home and I would just cry. But I couldn't put into words why I was feeling what I was feeling. Looking back now, all of it makes sense. But since the memories were repressed, there was nothing coming up like, oh, this is why I'm feeling depressed. However, the police, unlike what they do for Mary, which they just tell Mary, hey, your memories mean nothing and it's past the statute of limitations, goodbye. They actually do investigate. They primarily investigate because they argue that he is a former minister, community leader who is in charge of babysitting kids. So they just bring him in for a quick little questioning. And during the interrogation, he confesses like a confessional. He confesses to essaying not just his own daughter. And again, these are repressed memories. She didn't have quote unquote evidence of it. He confesses to essaying not just his own daughter, but more than 20 children over the span of 40 years. And after he is arrested, he calls his son Jimmy, the new minister, to tell him, I'm really glad you guys caught me because my next victim was going to be your daughter.
Jimmy,
his son.
His granddaughter.
Yeah.
Wow. And this is all from Alex's repressed memory resurfacing.
Yes. And they end up finding CSAM on his devices. Wow. The victims were between the ages of 4 and 7 years old. And now the 69-year-old preacher is going to serve 30 to 60 years in prison. Side note, that's another strong similarity of Alex and Mary's story. Both of their dads are very active members of the church, and from an adult perspective, nobody thought that they were creepy. Like, you know how some people, you say, oh, they just give me a creepy vibe? They never had reputations like that. They were all seen as well-to-do men. Jimmy, the minister's son of the predator, the son of the predator, he states, when I go and I do seminars of abuse now, I say, if you're looking for the weird guy who's hiding in the bushes or even the guy that's awkward to be around, you're looking in the wrong place. By definition, a successful PDF file is somebody that you would least expect. I wish I could stand here and tell you that my dad was this and that and he was creepy and we knew all along he was a deadbeat, he was this, he was physically, verbally abusive, because if he was all of those things, it would be easier to wrap your mind around how he was able to do all the things that he did. But he wasn't any of those things.
Wow.
Jimmy is very religious and he tries to teach other churches about how to identify perpetrators. And he says, you go to a church where someone is accused and all the adults say, no, he's such a nice guy though. He has a wife, he has children, and I've never seen him be creepy. Jimmy says, everything you're saying, you're describing my dad. And look what happened. However, the main difference between Mary and Alex's cases are, again, just the outcome of the case, because Jimmy Hinton believed his little sister and he went to the police and they were willing to open an investigation. The police listened, they found the evidence, and Jimmy also depressingly states, they got really lucky. We got lucky enough to find current victims. Because if it were just his sister, it would be past the statute of limitations. And he says, think about that statement for a minute. We were lucky enough that he had current victims who are young enough to fall within the statute of limitations. Jimmy also says about his sister what most people say about anyone who has repressed memories. She just had no reason to make that up. There was absolutely nothing to gain by making it up. In fact, most people who have repressed memories, their whole family life is torn apart. Even their extended family members don't want to believe them. They don't talk to them. You're shunned from the community. People who then date you, they think, oh, are you gonna make allegations about me? It's hard to make friends. They're not living a great life. No one is sitting around them being like, oh, baby, who hurt you? It's miserable. They're alienated from everyone. Mary specifically was disinherited by her family and cut out of a multi-million-dollar will. She lost family members who didn't believe her. She felt alienated by a lot of people. I'm not saying that the Hinton family situation confirms Mary's memories, but it's very interesting to note.
There was one time I was rented by the hour. Well, maybe many times, but one time I remember being rented by the hour, and he was abusing me out in a field, and he got really, really rough with me. I thought I was about to die, and then I heard a car, and then I saw, that it was my father, and I thought, oh, now I'll be okay. But what happened was that my father got sexually aroused, and so I saw my father masturbating.
The reason you decided to go to hypnotherapy in the beginning, is it because those flashbacks were bothering you so much?
No, my ex-husband and I had marriage problems really throughout our 23-year marriage. I asked him to go to counseling, and he did. We were in counseling, and we had told my parents about everything, but they came to visit us and stay at our house. My father's sister, my aunt, had been out of contact with my father for a few years, and I didn't know why. My father's sister said she wanted to meet with my father. So I was curious about that meeting. What was it? The reason for that visit is that my father's sister wanted to tell them about the memory she had, that she had been sexually abused by her grandmother, which would have been my great-grandmother. She thought they would get counseling, but they didn't. And so then I had trouble getting them to really even talk about it. And my dad and I went on a trip up to his hometown, his Sherman, Texas. On the way out, I asked him what his sister said, and she said, well, she has weird ideas. I said about religion, because I knew she thought women should be able to speak at church, and she had some other views on religion. And he said, no, about our grandmother. She says our grandmother sexually abused her. And so I'm like, wow. And he said something like, but I don't think it's a big deal if you don't remember things. I had young children at the time. When my father and I got back, I put my children to bed so they couldn't hear any of it. Then I sat down with both my parents and said, I want to hear all about what my aunt told you. And they were like, well, yeah, she's crazy. We won't. I said, well, what are you going to do about the situation? Oh, nothing. We just won't ever talk to her again. And the odd thing about that is that my aunt and my mother were roommates in college. Before my parents had met each other, they were always longtime friends. So I decided that I would wait until after they left, and then I would call my aunt and say, would you be willing to meet with me? So I did. My aunt and I met for lunch, and she said that I had witnessed abuse. I knew it was true. And I remember, I've never drank alcohol. I still don't. But I remember when I got in the car afterwards, it was like, oh, I wish I could just get drunk right now. Because it was so horrible of a feeling to think it's true, but I knew it was true. I didn't know I had been abused, but I knew what she was saying about me witnessing abuse was true. I was journaling, sitting on my couch, and all of a sudden I just see this image, and it's as though it's on the wall across from me. It's in color. That was interesting. I can just see a man's hand, and the man is grabbing a dog gruffly, grabbing a dog. And that's the one piece I had. Then I told my ex-husband, and he said, oh, well, we should quit marriage counseling, which made no sense. But he was looking for an excuse to quit marriage counseling. So he's like, we shouldn't have marriage counseling anymore. You should just go to the counselor alone and talk to her about your childhood. So I did. That's what I started doing.
These are videos?
Oh, these are audio, but they may break any time. These are the actual hypnosis tapes. Let me see which, I think I have them identified.
I don't think a lot of our audience have even seen these before. Have you seen these before?
I mean...
On TV.
It says Hypnosis, Monday, 10/19/93.
Mary says she taped the sessions to make sure that she was not guided into any sort of conclusion. And Mary, let us go through her tapes.
I went to a counseling session. My ex-husband came with me because we wanted to make sure the psychologist who was doing hypnosis didn't ask leading questions, and she didn't. It was at that next session that she had me relax, and then she guided me to go back and see the man's hand, and she had me go up his arm until I saw his face.
I think it was my dad. I think it was my dad.
Just relax, let it go. I wasn't repulsed by her body. I patted it. I put my fingers on her hair. That was horrible because my aunt told me about my grandparents, but she didn't tell me about my dad, her brother. She wanted to believe he hadn't voluntarily done something like that, but he did. So I called him, and I called him at his work number because I thought he was more likely to be honest with me than my mother, frankly, and that he was more likely to answer my question. So I called him, and he said, I just told him about the holding the dog gruffly with that I could see his hand was the one holding the dog, and it was like grabbing the dog, and that I thought that it was a part of abusing a dog. He said no, and he said, is this going to lead you to think I sexually abused you? And I was like shocked by his question. I had not even considered the possibility that I had been sexually abused by anyone, and especially not my father. At the end of the call, he said, well, I guess I won't talk to him anymore. And like, that was what he expected and wanted.
Mary says that's the thing about the memories. She had to not only go through the process of trying to verify if these memories are real, but also sort out which ones were manipulated by her parents and which ones were not. So, for example, there's one incident where Mary is certain that she had witnessed people being slaughtered. She says this is when she was 5 years old. She was told to stand outside the isolated family property. They lived in the countryside. They don't have any neighbors, and all you can see is like the top of this random hill from the outside of the house. She sees figures moving on the hill, mainly shadows. I mean, clearly it's her dad and a few other men, and there's like this wooden work table up there. And quote, although I could not clearly see what they were doing, I could see that they had knives. I was told that they were sacrificing unborn babies. She says, I was instructed to stay still for what seemed like a very long time, and what I remember most vividly about this incident is just how much my feet hurt. I was wearing tan saddle Oxfords and white socks, as young children often do. You know, I stood on the outer side of one foot, and then on the other foot, I squeezed my toes together as tight as I can. I stood on my heels. I tried anything to stop my feet from burning. She remembers all of these sensations vividly, and she does remember seeing on this hill flesh, like a lot of flesh. It looked at the time like young babies, fetuses being mutilated. But that's when she's 5. Mary knows that's not what happened. I mean, this is an example of how her parents would make her feel fear. She thinks that they likely purchased an animal, and as a 5-year-old, you are told what you're seeing and you believe it. She believes that there's no way that they were slaughtering actual fetuses or babies, but probably some sort of animal and showing her what they're capable of so that she would stay quiet. The thing with Mary is that she's very open to questions about her memory. She was like her own biggest skeptic in the beginning. Mary says, I thought the best way to truly question myself was to directly question people who, like my parents, say recovered memories are false. There was an unhealed part of me that wanted to believe that my memories were false, so that I could imagine my parents were respectable people. But instead, she says, I am certain that my memories of childhood essay are true. I did not remember my abuse until I was 37 years old. Even as a child, I had no conscious memory of the atrocities except while they were occurring. Besides, what motive does Mary have to lie? Whereas I don't know if the same could be said for the members of the False Memory Syndrome Foundation.
We have to help each other and forgive and understand and have empathy and not carry grudges forever and ever. Generational, one generation after the other. Hates, hates, hates. He touched me. Oh my God, he touched me. And therefore he touched me and he's dead. He's dead. And
so even if there was the incestuous touch, you think the family should
I don't know what
together.
Incestuous touch is. I mean, intercourse, if somebody comes into your bedroom and forces himself on you, that's one thing. What if what? I had an uncle, my sister says, used to fondle her. He'd hold a newspaper like this and he'd fondle her. Okay, he's dead. Don't ever speak to him again, he's dead. He made a terrible mistake.
So even fondling, you think,
say, get out of here, Uncle Irving, leave me alone, and walk away.
So you think the little kid should be responsible to do that?
I think at a certain point, if it's uncomfortable, they should speak up for themselves and be responsible for themselves, not carry a grudge from century to century.
But if there was sexual touch, do you think the family should still stay together?
Of course.
Even if there was...
Absolutely, yes. I don't think sexual touch is the horror of all horrors. I don't think so. I think we make a big to-do about nothing.
Do you regret going to see her? Or?
I did it to really question myself about, are my memories true? But I'm so glad I don't need to do that anymore, because I know my memories are true. I already really knew it, but I didn't. Just let myself question more deeply.
Dr. Jennifer is a psychology professor at the University of Oregon, and she starts recovering these repressed memories when she is a full-blown adult of like childhood essay. She's married, she's got 2 kids, she has a great job, but she just has so much anxiety.
She works in the campus?
Yeah.
As a psychologist?
Yeah, she's a psychology professor.
Oh, she's a professor.
So she is like, wow. She knows the field.
Yeah.
And she has a loving husband, she has 2 kids. Everything in life is going well. She's got a great job with job stability, but she just has this like unexplainable anxiety. And as a psychology professor, she's like, let me just go to a therapist and talk it out, because maybe it's like, I had a dream that the eggs burned down the house. Like, she's like, it's probably nothing, okay? So she goes to the therapist and she starts talking to the therapist, and she does state, if I really had to pinpoint, the only thing that is giving me a little bit of anxiety is my parents are coming over for Christmas break. So is my sister. They're going to visit for Christmas, and I don't know why I have anxiety over that. Like, maybe it's anxiety because you need to host. Maybe it's like you want your kids to be on their best behavior. And the therapist asks her, have you ever been abused by your parents? Immediately, she's like, no. No. Conversation moves on. Later that day, Jennifer suddenly has this disturbing flashback almost. And over the course of the next few weeks, she says, I remembered that my father had molested me when I was a young child. And then around that time, her sister, Gwen, calls her and is like, hey, I'm not coming to your house for the Christmas family gathering. And it's not because of you. Like, I love you, Jennifer, but I'm not coming. Like, you do know that our family is weird, right? Like, something is seriously wrong with our family. You know that, right? And then she drops this weird bomb. You know our father was SA'd as a kid, right? Jennifer says this was like a weird moment of just things started connecting, and like she did always think it was weird that her dad always wanted to talk to them about the book Lolita. He would also get pin art impression of his private parts and hang them in the living room. So like he would
what?
like his, I guess it's artwork of his down there.
A pin art of his private parts? And what?
Suddenly, Jennifer starts seeing these things as what they are, which is just really, really strange and inappropriate, but they don't really compare to the flashbacks that start coming in. She states that the earliest memory that came in was when she was 3 years old. Her father was abusing her in the bathroom. It lasts until she's a teenager, which means that this abuse lasts over a decade, and she's just now remembering it. Jennifer confronts her parents about it, and she says that her dad's response is so unsettling. You would expect that they're disoriented, highly confused, that the parents are outraged, but oddly it felt like he was almost prepared, almost like he's expecting it. So instead of working through this with Jennifer, which is what I would imagine parents, what they would do if these were truly false memories like they claim, or trying to figure it out together as a family, they retaliate. And her parents decide 18 months after her accusation that they are going to start the False Memory Syndrome Foundation. Pamela Fried is Jennifer Fried's mom. Pamela and Peter start False Memory Syndrome Foundation. The insane part of all of this is that Peter, the dad, he actually admits that Jennifer's childhood was fine, strange. Okay, he understands that maybe it wasn't appropriate all the time. He says, quote, I'm quite prepared to say the attitude I thought was appropriate of being open about things of a sexual nature, in retrospect, may have been wrong. It's very vague. To give you more context, he would work at home in the living room wearing nothing but a robe, and he would sit with his legs spread all the way apart. He would drink a lot at home. He was very erratic. He would give speeches about how their family was superior to everyone. They weren't the type of family to eat iceberg lettuce. They were the type of family to eat romaine lettuce. He would yap about how meat tastes better when you slaughter the animal yourself. He believed that classical music was superior, and, I mean, you're thinking, what a cultured and well-traveled man, right? No, he allegedly proclaimed Indian food was disgusting and smelly. The sad part is, Jennifer didn't even want her dad to apologize. She just wanted her mom's support during all of this. And instead, her parents gear up just in case Jennifer decides to sue. Jennifer writes a letter to her mom. The content of your letters suggests to me that you're putting an effort in a legal defense. I do not have any intention of attempting to use the legal system to heal wounds from years ago. Meanwhile, Pamela is already raging a campaign against her own daughter through her foundation. She wrote articles about her own daughter, who she dubbed Susan, which it was not that hard to find that. It's Jennifer. But regardless, she says, Susan was experimenting with drugs as a teenager, so her brain is fried. Obviously, she can't retain a single memory, like a banana. And maybe she's making up all these lies because her sex life with her husband now sucks, and she's jealous of her mom's professional success, and she's upset because she doesn't like being a mom, and she nursed her son for far too long, and that could be psychologically damaging. Also, she has a history of mental health disorders, so that's probably why she came up with this allegation, and not because, you know, it could be true. Pamela and Peter are also just a strange couple, not just because I think that their ideas and fundamental values are unburdened by the anchors of wisdom, but because they have their own history. Pam and Peter Fried, before they were husband and wife, were step-siblings. Pam's mom married Peter's dad when Pam was 12 and Peter was 14. That's a pretty young age to become step-siblings, and they went to the same high school. They allegedly start dating, become intimate, and at 18... they get married. And 9 months later, they give birth to Dr. Jennifer Fried. Peter did open up to Pam about how he was essayed when he was 7 to 11 years old. And Dr. Jennifer Fried says, you know, a lot of things that I remember is my mom had this weird thing where she just had this rage in her towards me. My mother also didn't like to touch me. Jennifer says just to have some sort of physical contact with her mom, Jennifer would massage her feet as a kid. And a lot of people believe that this could be because her mom was jealous of Jennifer. Anytime their dad was around, Jennifer would recall that her mom would grow even more distant and even more cold. And there would be once that she was sitting on her bed kissing her high school boyfriend. So Jennifer Fried is sitting on her bed kissing her high school boyfriend, and her dad is just like watching through the crack of her open door. She caught her dad once reading her diary, and he claims that she left it out because she wanted him, her dad, to read her diary. I've never met a teenage girl that wanted her parents to know anything about her personal life. He also says that he's not bothered by the fact that he was essayed as a kid, Peter Fried. He says it's technically abuse, but studies have been, done, and many people aren't really terribly bothered by it. He's invited his former molester into their family home with his wife and his kids, so there's that.
Who was it?
It was like a local musician.
Wow.
There are at least some 2,000 families that have worked with the False Memory Syndrome Foundation, mainly because they are parents who have been accused by their own children of abuse. And it's pretty clear what the biggest motivator for these parents are. They cared about not getting sued.
Your daughter Jennifer has said publicly that about the nude dancing in front of your husband, she and another little girl. And I think last time I was here, you were saying it was when she was about 9 or so.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think your husband has sexual feelings toward her?
No.
Why?
He's somebody that I've lived with for ever so many years. I knew him growing up. I never saw any indication.
But even the nude dancing, I mean...
He didn't ask to have that. That was something that they decided to do. He didn't want them to feel traumatized by coming down too hard on them.
But just to say, go into your room, or, did you talk to her about it later when you knew that had happened?
I didn't even know about it for quite a while.
Oh, he didn't tell you for a while after that?
Well, I was working.
DARVO is an acronym. It stands for Deny, Attack, and Reverse Victim and Offender. And in DARVO, what happens is there's an aggressive denial followed with an attack on the credibility of the person making the claim. It might take the form of questioning their mental abilities or their motivations, saying you're a liar or you're crazy. And then reverse victim and offender is when the person who's being held accountable assumes the victim role and says, I'm the victim here. More recently, we've been researching this systematically in the laboratory, and we have found that, unfortunately, DARVO seems to work, and you could say it's like a perpetrator strategy. And the ways we've so far found it works is it's associated with victim self-blame. So if people get DARVO'd, they're more likely to blame themselves. And it's also associated with third-party judgments. So third parties who are exposed to DARVO responses versus non-DARVO responses are more likely to doubt the victim and assume the perpetrator must have some basis for making the claims.
Also, another thing with Dr. Jennifer Fried, she says, to come out as an abuse survivor when I was like a doctor and being a professor, it's career suicide. It's career self-exit. Especially at the time that I came out with my accusations, it's not a time where people are rallying around survivors, especially in academia.
Wow.
It's not like 2025.
Yeah.
And even 2025, look what's happening in the Hockey Canada case. Like, it's crazy. The False Memory Syndrome Foundation would also help fund and initiate a series of lawsuits against well-known therapists whose patients have recovered memories. They would initiate lawsuits to take them down for malpractice. They had like $8 million to work with. They had a lot of money. One trauma therapist, the author of the book, The Body Keeps the Score, he says, these lawsuits had a chilling effect. While not all trauma therapists were sued, many of us suddenly felt under attack. As for Pamela, she's asked, how do you know you're not helping abusers? And so for someone who claims to be so married to the science, which I haven't seen strong evidence of quite yet, but regardless, Pamela says, we're a good-looking bunch of people. You know, graying hair, well-dressed, healthy, smiling. Just about every person who has, attended our meetings is someone you would surely find interesting and want to count as a friend. Pamela Fried's right-hand woman, who has also written books with Pamela, Eleanor Goldstein, also interviewed by Mary for her documentary, Am I Crazy?
The documentary name is Am I Crazy?
Yes, Am I Crazy? And Mary also spoke with Eleanor Goldstein's daughter, Dr. Stacey Charlotte, who also has recovered memories of childhood abuse.
Do you remember actually telling your parents about it?
Yeah, because I didn't know they had anything to do with it. The first memory that came up, I just remembered babysitters.
So it seems like almost all the members of this foundation have a strong motive to say that these are false memories. They have a lot of skin in the game. Eleanor tells Mary during their interview, we have to help each other forgive and understand and have empathy and not carry grudges forever and ever.
We have to help each other and forgive and understand and have empathy and not carry grudges forever and ever. Generational, one generation after the other. Hates, he touched me. Oh my God, he touched me. And therefore he touched me and he's dead. He's dead.
And just with all due respect, these individuals are insane. Eleanor Goldstein tells Mary, I don't think sexual touch is the horror of horrors. I think we make a big to-do about nothing. She also says that if a child is being essayed by their uncle, for example, the child should punch the uncle in the arm and scream, get out of here, Uncle Irving, leave me alone. I feel my frontal lobe lose density the more that I listen to Eleanor Goldstein speak. The foundation has also worked closely with Ralph Underwager, who, Ralph has some interesting takes. And by interesting, I mean, we should probably lock him up for a very long time. He's asked a very simple question of, is choosing being a pedophile a responsible choice? They're saying, is choosing being a pedophile a responsible choice for the pedophile? I don't even know what that question means. I think the minute that you ask that question, you should probably go to jail. The only thing that could be answered so simply is there is no responsible choice. And a pedophile, you're choosing to be emotionally, ethically, morally corrupt, and you are choosing to commit a felony, and you should be locked up in prison. He doesn't say that. But Ralph Underwager responds, certainly, it is irresponsible. What I have been struck with is I have come to know more about and understand about people who choose pedophilia is that they let themselves be too much defined by other people.
What?
Exactly. Like, defined by what? Who? Prosecutors? The DOJ? Like, what do you mean defined? He continues, usually there is an essentially negative definition. Pedophiles spend a lot of time and energy defending their choice to be pedophiles. And I don't think a pedophile needs to do that. I think they can boldly and courageously affirm what they choose. They can say what they want is to find the best way to love. Pedophiles are too defensive. They go around saying, you people out here saying that what I choose is bad and that it's no good. You want to put me in prison. You're doing all these terrible things to me. I just want love. I have to define my love. What I think is that pedophiles can make the assertion that the pursuit of intimacy and love is what they choose. With boldness, I think they should come out and say, I believe this is in fact part of God's will.
Oh, he's a Fed.
He's not, but I wish he would have been, right? They have the right to make these statements for themselves as personal choices. Now, whether or not they can persuade other people, that they are right is another matter. I believe that God's will is that we have absolute freedom, no conditions, no contingencies. The solution that I'm suggesting is that pedophiles become much more positive. They should directly attack the concept, the image, the picture of a pedophile as an evil, wicked, and reprehensible exploiter of children. He also thinks that women hate pedophiles because women are jealous that men are having connections with children instead of them.
So is he another member of the group, or what is?
Okay, so he's a doctor. He's a doctor, but not an MD. So he's not like a psychiatrist. He's a doctor in ministry. So he's like a PhD in ministry, which there's nothing wrong with that. But he works at the foundation and he uses the name doctor, and there's a strong implication that he is some medically trained individual, but he is not. So he actually spoke a lot about how repressed memories are not real. And then he turns around and is also a very suspect person who could potentially be a pedophile. I'm just saying. I mean, anyone could be a pedophile, but like he definitely could be a pedophile.
What are those statements that he's making?
Yeah. Like these are the people that are working with the foundation.
That's like making them look so much worse.
Yeah. I don't even know how they raised like $8 million.
Raised $8 million from
from just donations.
Members?
Yeah.
These people must be very desperate.
Yeah. Eleanor Goldstein writes, since essay of a child is the worst crime we know of, to be falsely accused of such a crime is the worst thing that can happen to a person. Okay. And the Rotten Mango team, we decided that we were going to go to Washington to meet with Mary to figure out if she was telling the truth. Not that we have any sort of authority in this, not that our opinion would matter, but just in terms of we were really captivated by her story. We were captivated by these debates and the memory wars. And we definitely tried our best to be objective. Before we went, we would have these mock debates where we would each pick a side, either the side that believes in repressed memories and the side that does not. I will say that each time that someone was on the side that does not believe in repressed memories, I mean, there's a lot of frustration. I feel like it was hard to come up with good arguments on why someone's repressed memories are false. But again, we're not medically trained. We have not studied trauma survivors in that type of environment. But to us, the logic just did not logic as well as believing the victim. And we tried our best to remain objective when we went to Washington to meet with Mary. I mean, we wanted to question everything. And I will say that when the Rotten Mango team got back, I think it makes even less sense to us than even before we went to Washington, that Mary would ever lie about something like this, that people would ever really lie. I mean, again, yes, you could argue that statistically, there must be some people who lie. There must be some people who lie to get car insurance claims. There must be some people who lie to get in positions of power. I mean, people lie all the time. There must be some small statistic of that. But it just doesn't make sense that a mass majority of people with repressed memories would lie about it. Mary is a highly accomplished individual. She currently works as a child clinician. She helps children process their emotions. She's also a respite foster parent. Foster parenting is a laborious, emotionally exhaustive job, and these foster parents, they get 2 days off a month without their foster kids. But those 2 days off the month, who's going to watch the foster children? They go to respite foster parents like Mary and Jerry. And Mary is very well aware of the process of trauma, dealing with trauma, how to recover from trauma. The feeling is like she seems so in tune with not only her emotions, but the emotions of everyone around her. And every single aspect of Mary's life then and now aligns with what she has been saying. When Mary and her family lived in the countryside, she distinctively remembers that like they had these kittens in the house, these baby kittens, and Mary's parents would force her and her sister Ruth to watch while the parents would throw the kittens at the wall like they were baseballs, and Mary says she remembers the walls shaking when the cats would hit the wall. And if the kittens weren't dead by then, Mary says that her parents would dunk them and grab them by the neck and dunk them in water, drowning them.
They made me and my sister stand there and watch our kittens being killed. And they killed our kittens threw the kittens at the side of the house, one at a time. And then they put the kittens in water. It was like the kittens were killed in the various ways someone could be killed.
Mary writes, Ruth and I were told that if we ever reported our abuse to anyone, the same things that happened to our kittens would happen to us. And this is not a one-time thing, by the way. Mary says that at another time a cat and her kittens were hanged one at a time in front of her. But the crazy thing is, Mary has another vivid memory that she recalled later on where her mom was telling people that came over, like house guests, family friends, that Mary had killed kittens before. And naturally, Mary doesn't want to believe her, but she does recall this one time where her parents had brought home new kittens. She's terrified that they're going to end up tortured and ultimately end up dead. So she decides that she's going to put them in warm clothes and hide the kittens away from her parents. She puts them in a little suitcase. She takes them to like this little greenhouse in the back of the house, puts them on the top shelf, hiding them. She remembers sneaking away once to check up on them and they looked like they were asleep. She thought they were asleep, but they were dead because Mary is young. She doesn't understand the concept of oxygen and suffocation. And in Mary's desperate attempt to save these kittens from a very torturous death, she ended up suffocating them.
She told the story about me putting these kittens, I dressing them up in doll clothes and putting them in this little bitty suitcase that I had. and how then, of course, they suffocated. We got a cat when I was still needing some healing from all these tragedies with kittens. And so when my husband and I got married, then that summer before we got married, I kept basically interviewing kittens at a cat shelter. I'd go and I'd hold a kitten, and
she went multiple times to see if she clicked with any specific cats, and there's this one cat named Kenya that she really wanted to adopt, and she was like, okay, I'm ready. The only thing is, she was just about to get married to Jerry.
It was right before our wedding, and we were about to leave on a honeymoon right after the wedding, and I asked if they could hold Kenya for a week, and they couldn't do that, so we postponed our honeymoon for Kenya. And yeah, I loved Kenya. She was she was an extremely cuddly cat.
In Washington, the Rotten Mango team went with Mary to a cat cafe. Oh, she also has this like really cute cat dress. I'm sure you've seen it already if you're watching the video version, but we took her to a cat cafe, and from the first moment that everyone was sitting down, this little cat jumps on top of Mary and stays put for the entirety of the time. And it's funny because everybody is sitting there. There's like 20 cats, no other cats. I mean, cats are coming by, they're saying hello, but none of them are just sitting on top of anyone else but Mary. And Mary was laughing and she said, you know, this cat looks like Kenya too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Crazy.
Kenya, I bought doll clothes and I dressed her up in them. She didn't especially like it, but she did it.
You can even get her to fetch sometimes.
Yeah, that's right. You throw a toy and she catches it. So Jerry does push-ups every morning, and he gets up before me and does 50 push-ups. And
really?
So the cat...
Even today?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
You can do 50 push-ups? Wow, how old are you?
77.
77?
So the cat would get on his back, and then he would go up with the cat.
77. I did not expect that.
Uh-huh.
It was actually hard for us to gauge Mary's personality outside of her work because she's so, I mean, activism is at the forefront of everything, and that's mainly what she talks about. But it's like hanging out with your mom or your grandma, depending on, I guess, your age. And she's a grandmother, so I don't think she's going to be offended by me calling her that. She insisted that since, you know, the RM team were in Bellingham, that we visit Village Bookstore. It's probably like one of the cutest bookstores in existence. Mary did book signings there for her book, and the employees already knew her.
Is this it?
Uh-huh. I don't see it. I should have mine in December, too. I wonder if they... Oh, there it is. Featured local authors.
This is a very cute store.
It is, isn't it? The people in Bellingham really like it being here because it's an independent bookstore. One thing that I thought was nice about the owner is they're real involved in what's going on in the city. And during the Pride Parade, a lot of people were at the Pride Parade, but one thing they did is they closed their store until 2 o'clock that day so all their employees could go to the Pride Parade if they wanted. And then I did my author event here. I did an author talk here. Oh. And I'll show you that space. Hi! Oh, come on! This is, I'm going to be on a podcast. Oh, cool. And remind me of your name. Sai. Yeah. This is Sai, and she's the one who introduced me for my author talk.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it was a real honor.
I'm going to go to Atlanta on Wednesday, and his wife is going to interview me there.
Very cute.
Yeah, I think it's nice place.
We just celebrated 45 years, actually.
No way.
Yeah, everyone knows Village Books, everyone that lives in Bellingham.
People travel here to go.
Really?
A lot of people, and this is just me fully bragging on the store, call us the Powells of Washington.
So my wife follows these bookstore TikToks. Book talkers will travel to cities just to go to different bookstores.
A couple people do traveling to Village Books.
Really? I wish Stephanie is here. I think she would. She would go crazy here.
So I read sections of my book. There were other people who I had never met, and it was just because of the publicity that Village Books did.
It's funny because I realized later, I actually think I realized this week, that I had seen your YouTube video before. At a really pivotal time in my life when I was starting therapy and kind of unraveling my own life. Which is why you look so familiar to me. Because I realized, I've seen.
That's it, because you said but that's how. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and so I felt kind of doubly grateful when I.
That's so fun that you'd already seen me. That
and then I got to introduce you.
Oh, cool.
It's been a wonderfully busy day.
Okay, that's great.
Thank you so much. Very nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
And another element is when you read some parts of Mary's book, a lot of people were saying that they thought that her memories sounded too vague. She doesn't want to mention specifics. And I don't think that's a reason to doubt someone, especially when privacy is a huge concern. But I will say that one thing we thought was interesting is Mary is very open with anything that has to do with her. But she highly values everyone's privacy, her foster children, her friends, her family members. Even if we're in her house and we're walking by and she'll see something and she'll be like, oh, look at that bookshelf. Oh, wait, no, please don't put that in there. I don't want people to see their name.
And you'll just have to not put his last name there. Yes. Oh, I've got to take these down. I'm sorry.
Oh, we can blur them.
Yeah, I'll just take them down.
Quick note, that photo on here, definitely 100% to be blurred.
Could you take it without that, and then it's artwork that you can have?
Yes. Oh, yes.
Because it's such lovely artwork. This is S. You'll have to get his name out, but this was to his hamster. You just can't take, or you'll have to blur out the names here. Just put her first initial. This is the little girl, the child who used to use scissors or break these little people. Now made this for me. Wow. And wanted me to take it home with me. The child would would have maybe 10 that would be cut across by the end of the session or broken into little pieces. I had a child who would do this. And then break them, yeah.
Does that usually help a child?
I think it does. I think anyone that's been through trauma needs to express anger. So yeah, I've had 2 that did this, and they'd bring home this in a little baggie because it was their work for the day. So I tell parents, don't say have a good time to your child, because that's like if you're walking into a therapist's office and someone says have a good time. This is their work. And now that's what the child does. I think the child's just really healed a lot. I worked at a children's home and I was the adoption worker.
I wanted to ask about that as well. Was that before your memory came back or after?
It was before.
So at that point, you haven't realized the type of trauma and everything that you've gone through, but you still went down this social worker path and you're helping kids. Do you think subconsciously your body knows and you want to help?
Absolutely.
You want to help others and help yourself already?
I was desperately trying to rescue children, and I thought I could, and I did place children who had been severely abused. I also did infant adoption, so I've done some of that. So yeah, I was trying to rescue kids. I would get really emotional about cases, and although I still do, so I must admit I still do, but I don't do it. I don't usually get bothered, I don't get obsessed with it like I used to.
Wow.
Well, I have had a couple of cases. I got a little overly, but I would say now I enjoy it more. I enjoy my psychotherapy with children, and I care about them. But I'm also really good now. The type of psychotherapy I do with children, I need to be just very present. That's the main thing I need to be. I need to be there and present. And so it works well because I'm just in my whole life, I'm more present now. But I wasn't trained for that kind of therapy until after I remembered.
That's so interesting. You didn't know it, but you just knew you wanted to help. And wow.
Well, truth be told, many people in the helping people profession have issues that they have not worked through yet.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
That's a common thing.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. You go into psychology to figure out yourself. You know, you say you go into it to help other people, but yeah, many people do. I'm not saying everyone, but many people do. These were done by our foster children, and one little boy who had never had the experience of making something and selling it. So he made these, and I posted on Facebook. We sold them for like $4 or something, and I let him go around and ask neighbors. And so then he had the experience of, you make something, and then, oh, this is just too sad. This is S, you'll have to get his name out, but this was to his hamster. It's so sad. Yeah, I can't show that because it's got the picture, but...
You feel sad because...
he's not doing well. S is not doing well. Yeah, I wish he was, but he is. He's. Yeah. This is one of the artwork. Yeah.
I love this.
Isn't it great? I think that kid's talented. Yeah.
Is this by S?
It is. He was with us more than once because he would go to one home and then get kicked out, and then there was another home. This is really sad, but he was sexually abused by a foster father. Yeah. When he had to leave the home of the abuser, we couldn't say no. I mean, I just could not say no. I just couldn't say, no, you can't come back to our home. And so he was at our home for a while until they found another home for him.
Do you know when was this done? Was this after the abuse?
Yeah, it wasn't right after, but it was.
Did he name it Deep Struggle, or?
He named it Deep Struggle. That's all his doing. And the thing is, he did have behavior problems. An abuser could say, well, he's lying, but he wasn't. And the police did follow up with it. We're concerned he will end up on the streets. Yeah.
Mary also writes in her book, the fact that I do not have continuous memories of my childhood abuse made it impossible for me to bring any of my perpetrators to justice. I regained memories at the age of 37. But she does have boxes of journals that she's kept for decades.
These are all things you might want because they're like old calendars. And so then when I was making my documentary, I'd go and look in things. Yeah, and then I would see what I was doing back then, and it helped me to figure out time frame. Sometimes I kept them all the time and sometimes not. So the who is inheriting my intellectual property is also inheriting these in case someone wanted to go through them at some point. I have journal entries that are right after like my first hypnosis, and yeah, I do. And I've looked at all of them.
And she's gonna pass this on to someone who has also, they connected on a very deep level. And it's just the way that she keeps these catalogs. Again, there's no way that she just sat in a hypnotherapist's office and then walked out and was like, you know what? You're right. Everything is so meticulously documented. I mean, there's so much. She even has letters from her parents. She shared some with us, which these letters that Mary's father has written her are just strange.
Recently, I've started letting myself heal from a sexual assault I experienced in college. And I just went to my college 50th reunion. It was from my junior college. When I was there, I went on a date with a young man. One of my friends knew him, and I didn't have a date to the Sadie Hawkins Day banquet, and so I asked him. The girls were asking me, well, what kind of corsage are you getting? And I thought, I don't know that he is. But anyway, so I said, well, a wrist corsage would be nice. And he got one, and I got him a boutonniere. Afterwards, at the college, which was a Christian college, they had films in what was actually being used then as the church building. And so we went to the film afterwards, and I think he had tried to kiss me, and I didn't want like a passionate kiss. And so anyway, when we're sitting watching the film in what was really a church building, he touched me between my legs, and I brushed his hand away, and then he did do it a second time. And now I know I could have just said stop or yelled or something, and there were many young men at that college who I knew who would have been glad to escort me home, And I was actually in a safe place, but I didn't feel safe to say what had happened because I felt like it was my fault because I shouldn't have asked him to give me a corsage. And so recently I've been processing that, and I just feel so sorry for that little college student who didn't know any better than that. And so I think about imagining her coming over to see me, and I let her stay in this room that I had bought some new sheets for it. They're real comfy, and she could come I can imagine her coming and sleeping here, and then the next day she gets to eat breakfast with me and Jerry. She gets to be around safe people. And so instead of being mad at her for not knowing, I'm just nurturing her. Yeah. This is our bedroom. I do sleep with stuffed animals. I sleep with this guy, and then later I thought I would like a bigger one, so sometimes I sleep with this guy, and just more to cuddle there.
What do Ted Bundy, Harvey Weinstein, Jerry Sandusky, remember Jerry Sandusky? Clark, O.J. Simpson, Bill Cosby, the Oklahoma City bombers, Ghislaine Maxwell, what do they all have in common?
High profile.
They have all used the same defense witness, Elizabeth Loftus. Dr. Elizabeth Loftus is often known as the doctor when it comes to memory, and she is a firm believer that repressed memories are not real. And it's very interesting because she might have a very strong financial motive to do so, but what do I know? I'm sure testifying for these defendants, they come with a price, and an exact one, $600 per hour. $600 per hour, and I'm sure that these defendants, Ted Bundy, Harvey Weinstein, Ghislaine Maxwell, the Night Stalker, the police officers accused in the Rodney King beating, Bill Cosby, she has testified for the defendants in each of these trials. All of these defendants probably would rather victims not be believed. Elizabeth Loftus believes that when it comes to repressed memories, and of course, just like the others, she always puts like quotes around it. She says, on one side, you have true believers who insist that the mind is capable of repressing memories and who accept without reservation or question the authenticity of recovered memories. On the other side are the skeptics who argue that the notion of repression is purely hypothetical and essentially untestable, based as it is on unsubstantiated speculation and anecdotes that are impossible to confirm or deny. During Harvey Weinstein's trial, she testifies, false memories, once created either through misinformation or through these suggestive processes, can be experienced with a great deal of emotion, a great deal of confidence, and a lot of detail, even if they are false. Her biggest thing in these trials, when she's testifying for the likes of Ghislaine Maxwell, is that memories are fragmented. Memories are not reliable. Any neuroscientist will tell you, yeah, we know. All memories, though, not just false memories that you claim are real, all memories, and I'm saying like false memories, like she's claiming false memory syndrome, right? All memories are fragmented. All memories are incomplete and tend to fade over time. That's just the nature of memories in general. And while certain details like an eye color or what someone is wearing at what times or what time someone arrived at someone's house may be incorrectly recalled, people almost always remember the general outline or gist of what has happened. For Ghislaine Maxwell's trial, Elizabeth Loftus argues that, quote, even traumatic experiences can be subjected to post-event suggestion that can exaggerate, distort, or change the memory.
So she is like the most famous memory doctor everybody calls for. Her whole job is just to say whatever that person is saying is not reliable because memories could not be trusted. Is that it? Which
I'm, for some reason, always like never really applies to the defendant. And out of the 300 plus times that she has testified in the court system, she has only testified for prosecutors one time, while she's charging $600 an hour. In an interview, Elizabeth Loftus says that she thinks that people can forget and remember things in a very ordinary way. And she knows that people don't like her. She says, I know the prejudices and fears that lie behind the resistance to my life's work. I understand why we want to believe an eyewitness who says he did it. He's the one. I sympathize with the need to own the past. That is, to make it one's truth. As for why people accept these repressed memories, Elizabeth writes in her book, was there something inherently wrong with her? A mental illness of some kind, a psychological flaw, an inability to separate fact from reality? Surely only a fragile, troubled individual would allow herself to become convinced that a false memory was actually real. And if she were so vulnerable, so easily misled, wouldn't that indicate that in fact something terrible had occurred in her past? She says, or it could just be, quote, simply, she could have had the misfortune to run into a misguided and overzealous therapist. Or perhaps the problem is with therapy itself, a profession that has become our new religion, offering quick and easy answers for life's complex and essentially unanswerable problems. She also states that sometimes people have this internal conflict about their childhood, and to have these, quote unquote, false memories of clear-cut abuse would be easier to cope. Creating a fantasy of abuse, with its relatively clear-cut distinction between good and evil, may provide the needed logical explanation for confusing experiences and feelings. Also, there have been some clinicians who state it is in their practicing theory that a lot of patients actually forget remembering. Like, they will remember this memory over time. So it's not just like all of a sudden they remember it decades later. It's like they'll remember it and then they'll repress it again. And they'll forget memorying it.
Huh, okay.
So they've had instances of that, and a lot of people think that is probably also accurate. Of like, you remember it, you're repressing, your brain represses it, and then you even forget remembering it. And I think sometimes it's best to just look at how people act. At the very least, when you boil it down, Mary is living the life that aligns with what she says. She does everything that aligns with her trauma, how she's recovering, how she's healing, and how she wants to help others. Meanwhile, Elizabeth Loftus writes about how she hated when victims are not believed. Quote, I do not want to see a return of those days. Not so very long ago, when a victim's cries for help went unheard and accusations of SA were automatically dismissed as fantasy or wish fulfillment and shunted away into the backwaters of the public conscience.
Wait, I don't get it. Why is she writing that then, if she's defending the...
Yeah, she's just saying that a lot of people think that she's against SA victims, but no, she's just here for the truth. Meanwhile, she's testifying for defendants like Ghislaine Maxwell, Ted Bundy, Harvey Weinstein. When someone's words and actions do not align in such a strong, repulsive way, at least in my personal opinion, you have to wonder, excuse my language, like, why the fuck not? Loftus does try to say that she is not the one deciding someone's innocence or guilt, just educating people on eyewitness testimony and saying, quote, well, we are all innocent until proven guilty under this wonderful system of ours, and even very unpopular people have a right to a defense. And while I do agree with that sentiment at its core, did you really have to go and testify for over 300 different trials, with most of them being people accused of sexual abuse?
Is she related to Mary? Case or no?
Yes, and Mary has actually confronted Elizabeth Loftus for her documentary.
How old were you roughly then?
About 37.
One netizen sums it up really well. Elizabeth Loftus did not prove that repressed memories aren't real. She argued well that certain types of memories can be implanted or fabricated through suggestion. Also, the fact that Loftus testified on behalf of Ghislaine Maxwell, Harvey Weinstein, Ted Bundy, etc. raises serious red flags for me. It doesn't discredit her research itself, but the fact that she's endorsing her work being used in this manner doesn't exactly indicate her to be a person with a sole interest of finding scientific truth. Elizabeth Loftus straight up said that for Ghislaine Maxwell's trial, that the financial reward for victims could make the human brain create a false traumatic memory. The prosecutors questioned her. How'd you come to that scientific theory? And she says, I am not aware of any studies on that, but based on my research, it's definitely possible.
Oh, this woman's crazy.
Yeah.
She said that in court. Wow. Wow.
Elizabeth Loftus was also heavily involved in the False Memory Syndrome Foundation with Pam Fried and Eleanor Goldstein. She's asked, like, is this foundation basically just lobbying that false memory syndrome is a thing? And she says, I don't know. I mean, would you say that people who are concerned with about pancreatic cancer and form a foundation to try and deal with it and support research and educate people that they're a lobby? But like, pancreatic cancer is a very real thing that's medically recognized. False memory syndrome is not. So I just, like, for someone who is, I mean, on paper, very well educated, I don't know where this analogy is coming from. This comparison is bizarre. Elizabeth Loftus has stated in an interview subsequent her participation in Mary's documentary, she says, quote, "It was awful. It was sort of ridiculous. I don't know why she had this camera on me with this side view the whole time. I felt just very sort of misled. And I felt sorry I cooperated." And she's asked, "Did you feel like you were misrepresented?" "No, just misled. I don't know. I thought she would be more open-minded." And then she is asked about how in the documentary, Mary's documentary, Eleanor Goldstein is very aggressive with Mary and not a nice person at all, in my opinion, okay? But she says, "I understand that Goldstein was, one of those devastated family members, and if they have a kind of anger about what happens in their family, you almost can't blame them."
You can't blame who?
Eleanor Goldstein for being like a raging, mean person.
I don't think sexual touch is the horror of all horrors. I don't think so. I think we make a big to-do about nothing.
Meanwhile, Mary, what she said about the interviews, she says, "I will say that I dreaded each of these interviews. I felt physically ill as the interview time approached. I will never do something like that again. I do not suggest other survivors do what I did."
Hearing the story at first, and were you ever doubtful or no?
Well, I heard the story in little pieces. I mean, we went on our first date, she kind of hinted at it, and it was months and months where I just got little pieces of stories. And yes, I had a lot of doubts. I was trying to figure out if she was crazy or special or somewhere in between. It took me a long time to decide she was truly believable.
Was there a moment, was there a defining event? Was it just gradually?
It was gradual. I mean, there was no single thing that changed my mind about anything. It just was just a accumulation of getting to know her and getting to know her credibility and who she was.
How do you feel about when people questioning her?
It's so normal. Every time she puts something on the internet, there's a counter posting somewhere. And it's just, anybody who puts himself out in the public is going to get criticism. And I don't think it's any worse for her than anyone else who puts their life on the line and online.
If you have to name one thing you like most about Mary.
Oh, I think she's the most courageous person I've ever met. Her willingness to put herself out there and to take all the criticism she takes. And I know it hurts her a lot, but she keeps doing it and never quits.
If there's a meteorite, you have the last 24 hours. How would you spend that 24 hours with Mary?
That is a good question. I think we just cuddle together, tell each other we love each other, and wait. How did she answer that question?
Well, I would also want to spend it with my sons. So, yeah. So, and that's not, I love my sons and I love my husband in different ways.
Right.
But
of course.
That does come to mind. If there was a meteor tomorrow, I'd want to see my sons and my grandchildren and my bonus grandson. But how would I spend it? Me and Jerry, holding hands a lot, cuddling. I don't think there's anything that's unsaid. Like, it's not like I need to tell him that I love him because I already tell him that all the time.
What memory of you guys will always make you smile?
Well, the memory that makes me smile is seeing her in the wedding dress. I was just stunned when I saw her. I'd never seen her look like that, and it was just, I was speechless, literally.
Wow.
And I think she recognized that and was pretty pleased herself.
Your book is called My Life Now.
Yes.
How would you describe your life now with 3 words?
Happy. Happy, you know, I can say happy 3 times. Happy, happy, happy. Full, like I'm not lonely now. And children, you know, it's full of children too. If I had a full play therapy office, it would have like a sandbox and, you know, maybe an art easel. And I'm able to rent this office real inexpensive. Oh yes, this